Guys, welcome back. I have Coach Michael Bann all helmeted out today right now so that we can have a discussion about what led him, well, to this moment of having a helmet on. So, you going to take that thing off? Or?
Yeah, I'll take that off.
I like that you had the chin strap on it too, just to make sure it didn't go anywhere.
Oh man, safety first. These things are like $700 a pop. Got to gently put it down.
What I wanted to talk to Michael about today is some of the stories that led him to where he is, because one of the things that I find so uniquely interesting about Michael is that he has the ability to wrap his head around very complex topics and explain them back to people in a way that they can understand it, even though here and there people lose him a little bit just because it can be so complex. So I want to kind of walk through a little bit of where he came from, why he does what he does, why he loves doing what he does, and ultimately get back to this moment in time. So Michael, what are some of the things early on that you remember? Because one of the things that you said to me is, I love to solve puzzles.
Yeah.
You know, what led you to wanting to solve puzzles, do you think?
Well, I mean, I guess it's like, maybe word like masculine. It's a very masculine endeavor. Not in the toxic masculinity term that we hear a lot today, but more in like the tantric masculine feminine David Deida world. And it's just there's a mission and purpose there, and hyper focus trying to solve a puzzle kind of gives me this level of like freedom where my mind is always racing. At all times, my mind is going a million miles a second.
Was that always the case as a kid?
Yeah, actually, I read my first medical journal when I was 8 years old because I was bored in the airport because we were stuck, and my dad bought me one. It was actually a cardiac journal, and it was the American Heart Association. And I didn't understand most of it, obviously. Like, I couldn't pronounce most of the words in there, but like I really got kind of frustrated not being able to understand that stuff. So I was, at 8 years old, I kind of made the decision of like, one day I want to be that guy that can understand all this stuff. And then through different paths and journeys throughout my career and my life, just generally kind of realized I've always loved solving puzzles. I would play with puzzles growing up, whether it was like those little metal puzzles you got to figure out how to take them apart, or if it was model airplanes and trying to put the airplane together and then paint it, and like, you know, just trying to always do something like that. And then, you know, I worked for Best Buy for a very quick stint when I was in high school, and always trying to figure out how to refine something, right? Kind of like how you do with business, refining systems of business. Japanese might call it like Kaizen. Always trying to refine, and that's when I kind of realized, like, I just love solving puzzles. And the human puzzle is the most complex puzzle in the known universe.
When did you become aware that you loved the complexity of it? So obviously you would have understood I like puzzles, but when did you start to dig down and have a different awareness around why you loved the puzzle?
Probably in high school when I started fitness. So, you know, I started fitness when I was like 15, and I started helping people. You know, I was a senior in high school, so you're the senior weightlifting class or whatever, and there's like freshmen in the class, and so I was like helping out the freshmen, and just for whatever reason, it was always really complex, because I was like, why is it that this kid can bench press so much and he never benches, and then this kid, you know, benches all the time and he can't bench a lot? So it was very rudimentary, right? Like, I'm in high school, like, what did I really know? Probably nothing. But my mind was always racing. And then also with my own self, like, why is it that it takes so much effort for me to build up pecs? You know, because when you're 17, duh, that's what you need, pecs and abs.
Of course.
So just always trying to figure out how come I can't develop it and others can. And then it just kind of went from there, studying injuries. Why did I get hurt all the time? Doing fitness where others didn't. So.
Do you think that study, did you think it was leading to something, or did you think that you just loved to study it?
I had no idea where it was gonna take me. I honestly thought like I would never like amount to anything, but it was just curious. And in my head at the time, I didn't really know where it was gonna go. And it was more just this weird, insatiable curiosity that for whatever reason I couldn't stop constantly thinking about. So, and then like when I started to get hurt, like I started to do more fitness stuff, and I would tweak things here and there. Like, you know, I hurt my knee actually front squatting less than 50% of my one rep. It blew my mind. I was like, how? Like, I could front squat almost 400 pounds. How did a 185 hurt my knee? And it wasn't even fast. It was just a warm-up set of controlled tempo squats. And so I have a perfect score on the FMS, at the time I did at least. And I ended up so confused because I was in that FMS crowd of, hey, I've done 12,000 FMSs, and the FMS gurus out there were telling me that if you don't have a 12, or a 14, sorry, with no asymmetries and no ones, then you're not good enough. And it was like, I'm a 21, and like a legit 21 with hard graders. Why am I getting hurt? And these people with 10s and all these asymmetries are getting better. And then I coached CrossFit. Ironically, I didn't start in CrossFit. I started more conventionally, but I got into coaching group fitness for almost 4 years. And I did literally 12,000 plus FMSs, and I collected all the data. And I remember seeing countless people have terrible scores on the FMS, but they were getting out of pain, they were getting stronger, faster, more fit, they weren't getting hurt. And I saw people with great movement getting hurt, having chronic pain, etc. And that really confused me. It was a puzzle piece that shouldn't be there. And it was this, I guess you might want to call it, like, it was incongruent with what I've been told. Gray Cook and Lee Burton and Greg Rose and all these gurus out there, Kelly Starrett, talking about all this movement stuff, like, oh, you gotta have torque, you gotta have this, supple leopard that. And I was that guy that was like, no, I'm a supple leopard. Like, I'm super mobile, I have great movement. Why am I getting hurt? Why do I have pain? And so I started to dig deeper and deeper into it myself. And the deeper I dug with myself, the more I started to see it in other people. And then the more I started to work with other people and see it in them. And then I went, I finished up undergrad, and then I went to graduate school, and I studied the science, and I learned how to learn, which is probably what really led me to where I'm at now, is learning to learn and critically think versus just go to a 2-day FMS seminar and being told you have to squat like this or else you're not allowed to squat.
When you think of human body, whether it's in the context of medicine, fitness, well, let's just leave it kind of those two pieces. Do you view the solving of the puzzle in a similar way that you might solve a physics problem or a mathematics problem? Like, is it the same concept to you, or is it different?
It's very different. You can probably draw principles, like thinking back to when I took physics and calculus and all that, there's no emotion involved in that. It's just is, right? Like, what is this velocity? What is this, differential equation? And there's no emotion there, it just is. And I know you can get to like the level of where like you can start arguing.
Theoretical.
Yeah, and so I'm not getting into that, but like the human condition, the human experience, that's the most complex puzzle in the known universe. Like, we can study black holes and all that, but you throw consciousness into it, we're literally meat sacks with the consciousness.
Yeah.
So you want to throw in consciousness into the equation, that changes everything, right? So yes, like there's some similarities, like I'll use like basic principles of mathematics to really figure stuff out. Like, I use a lot of math and a lot of data to drive stuff, and I see things in numbers, kind of like how Neo sees the Matrix. Like, when I look at someone's data, I can kind of figure stuff out.
And when you say data, blood work, numbers, assessments?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I was actually recently having a conversation with an oncology nurse, and I was just listening to her symptoms. And I was like, your blood work's going to look like this. Lo and behold, like, she gets her blood work back, and I was like, yeah, told you, like, to a T. So my head calculates it, like in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, like that could come from this could come from that. That means that these numbers would look like this because that makes them acidic, and this cation is at this level, and blah, blah, blah. So I use math, but then I have to also think about like, okay, well, like, what about emotions? How does emotion draw that?
But she's a nurse and she has this lifestyle, and I know this about her and these tendencies.
Yeah, so like I use, to answer, I guess, the question, I'll use like mathematics and like those kind of things, but you have to have like a level of just intuition behind it where you can just sense it.
So you went from physical puzzles to human physical puzzles. Did you do that for a conscious reason? Was it because it was a more complex puzzle, or was it something else?
To be honest, it's because I'm autistic. Like, I'm a high functioning autistic dude. So I have Asperger's, and I had no consciousness behind it for whatever reason. Have you ever seen The Accountant?
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah, we saw it together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the beginning of the movie where the kid, like, the young man is trying to solve the puzzle and that missing piece is there and he starts freaking out. That's my head when like something isn't making sense to me. Like I freak out and I won't sleep. I won't be able to do anything. I won't eat. I won't talk to people, and I will go and read textbook after textbook to figure it out. So like 2-3 years ago, I read a textbook in 14 days because I was like confused a little bit. And I was like, I have to figure this out. And so if a pattern and a puzzle, like if there's something that's just not right, always with everything that I do, it'll bug me forever. Video games, riding my motorcycle around. Like the other day, my shifter wasn't working right, and so like I really like obsessed over
Dug into it.
Yeah, so I've always been that way. I probably get it from my dad. My dad's the same way with electronics, and so I think it's an conscious thing. But now I'm aware of it. So like now I know, like, okay, like if I want to sleep, I better not start this right now because I won't go to bed until 4 a.m. and I got to wake up at 5.
That's a good point.
So I have this level of awareness of myself to know, yeah, I really like puzzles, and right now I probably shouldn't start that puzzle because I won't finish it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm reading a book right now called The Man Who Solved the Market, and it's about Jim Simons, who created Renaissance Technology, which is one of the, considered the most successful hedge fund of all time. And he did quantitative analysis algorithms and computerized trading starting back in the 80s. But the book tells the story of one of his colleagues who ultimately traded with him, and they were mathematicians, which is one of the reasons I asked you about, math versus physics. And this guy was a professor, and he would get so obsessed about these theoretical math problems that one day he was so in the zone that he walked into class having only shaved half of his face.
Yeah.
And it's like I can see you like being so focused on something where nothing else even matters. And when I see you analyze client information, it's not often that I see that level of focus. And I don't even think you even think it's focus. It's just like, yeah, I'm just looking at somebody's data, but there's a difference in that. So where do you go from here? Like, where does this journey go from here?
Well, long game is back to another grad school to get another graduate degree.
And what might that one be?
Right now, I would go to most likely Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine. So looking at med school, really. But there is a strong possibility that I might do a PhD after that, because the things that I want to know, no one out there is really doing the research on it. And there's no money in that field because like really doctors, they graduate, then they go off to a residency and then a fellowship, right? So you can go to an oncology residency as a naturopathic medical doctor. There is no fitness residency because I love fitness and I will always be a performance coach first and foremost. Like a lot of people kind of get it weird. They're like, oh, I don't have any health issues. I don't need to go to you, but my job is performance. It's just when we can't perform, something has to be investigated deeper. So there's no field of like performance, like there's sports medicine, but that's not really what I would look at. So I'm just kind of gonna blaze my own path and think about performance. Similar to like Bann as a PhD in nutritional biochemistry, nobody's really doing the research that he wants to do. So he just went and created, his own little retreat in Costa Rica, and he's doing it himself. And that's kind of where I see myself going, except more with the mixed modal world, because Bann works in more of that bodybuilding aesthetic hypertrophy world, which I think is awesome. I love his work. I want to do it in the mixed modal world because I see it being a lot more useful in terms of like the population I work with, tactical athletes as well as CrossFitters. So I think probably I'd get into that in the next 10 years, doing more research in that realm and publishing my research.
Awesome. I think this is going to be a fun journey to watch, guys. Thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we're rolling. I'll give this a second. Story first or performance first?
Story first.
Okay.
Because my helmet's on. It's part of my story.